Well, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome you back to another phenomenal show here on the Confidence Igniter podcast. I am so excited about this episode, and I know you will be too. Today, we're going to be talking about walking in your purpose. And I have a phenomenal guest today. She is just awesome and amazing. And I am so thrilled to introduce she's just truly a remarkable guest. She is an acclaimed speaker, an award winning entrepreneur, and a dynamic market executive who makes waves in the health and wellness space. As the founder and CEO of OPUA, she's leading the charge in chronic disease prevention, empowering communities to take charge of their well being and embrace a healthier way of life. A trained journalist and the host of the Future Health Now podcast. She's passionate about shifting mindsets, promoting generational health, and inspiring lifestyle change that lasts. She's also the best-selling author of Ugly Duckling. What you see is not what you get. A powerful testament to transformation and truth. Please help me to welcome the phenomenal Siobhan Reed.
Hello, Tamiko.
Hello. I am so excited that you were able to join me on the show today.
I'm doing lovely. The sun is shining outside, so I cannot complain. It's a vibe.
I like that. Well, I know I introduced you, but how about if you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. So I am a health and wellness advocate. I started the movement called the Future Health Now movement, and I had more than about 25 years in corporate. And I started working when I was 14 years old. Oh my goodness. And so I spent a lot of time in the marketing and the health space and spent some time at the Centers for Disease Control as a summer student. And then also as a health communications support for the Division of Reproductive Health. And I learned a lot about health. It started with my aunt because she actually used to work at the CDC. And she actually had some health challenges with lupus, which is like the mystery disease. And so that's when kind of health started like becoming a thing in my mind because I saw her struggle for many years with her health. And then as an adult, oh my gosh, it pivoted. And then I was working in marketing and spending a lot of time on the road as a mom and a wife. It was just very challenging. And so it kind of just had me thinking, well, I need to pivot into my purpose here because I was watching the clock. I was in tears when it was time to go on my trips and things like that. But at the heart, I am an advocate for all things health and wellness.
I love it. I love when you said I need to start pivoting into my purpose. I like that. All right. Well, like I said, our talk today is walking in your purpose. So I'm gonna go ahead and I have some questions for you, and I'm sure the viewers would love to know some of these answers to the questions. So one of my first questions that I have for you today is, what was the defining moment that made you become a champion for health? I know you said you gave some insight on that, but you talked about your family and yourself, but you're not just doing it for your family and yourself. Now you're doing it for others. So what was that defining moment to take it beyond yourself, your family, and then say, I'm going to help others as well?
Well, it was very personal because I actually saw my mom go through several chronic diseases and illnesses that really just shook her to her core. And it was a long struggle. I mean, she had multiple heart attacks. And by the time she was 50 years old, she ended up having to get her leg amputated. She suffered from diabetes, kidney failure, heart disease, had to have a pacemaker. And all these things just kind of got me to thinking, why? Like, why is this the situation when we're living in the age of modern medicine where, we have personalized medicine, right? And my husband actually lost his mom at an early age. I think she was only 42 from complications of cancer. And so he was always like an advocate and saying, you need to not eat that, or you need to do better with your exercise, and always just kind of keeping that topic at the forefront of the mind. But then after I experienced the loss of my mom back in 2021, I was like, I really feel like if she knew better, she would probably do better. And then I started to realize in all of my research and standing up like different studies and things like that, that part of it is systemic. And as I look upon my family and I say, well, are we setting ourselves up to just continue this, road and this journey? And then I started to reflect amongst those that are closest and dearest to my family. And I was like, the marginalized communities really have it bad. I mean, we have food deserts, we can't afford the healthier foods, and we don't even realize that we need to have those healthier habits and things incorporated into our life for future health. And so it dawned on me, all the things that I saw that I was working on when I was in the division of TB elimination and working with the global AIDS group at CDC, and then the division of reproductive health, I realized that there was an opportunity there. And it was one that I had often thought about, but just didn't really know how to like break into. And so, of course, when the pandemic hit, I was like, you know what? This is my chance to really figure this thing out. And I was asked to find success somewhere else from my corporate job. And I just embraced it because it's something that I knew deep down in my heart that that's something that I wanted to do and that I felt pulled and called to do. And then I just decided, you know what? I'm going to pursue this because it felt so good. It felt so right. And like I was following my North Star. And the greatest thing that I want is to leave a legacy, one that demonstrates that I left an impact. And I think that's the greatest way that I can do it, because even as a child, I suffered from mental health challenges. I am a survivor of suicide. And people often would look at me and go, well, they don't believe my stories when I share. I grew up as a impoverished child in Southwest Atlanta. My mom was low income. She was single. She had 3 children that she had to care for. And so I understood the hardships. I understood the systemic racism that was involved that caused her to push off prioritizing her health because she was just trying to survive, right? And so I just felt like if there was one thing that people could know, or I could be known for, it would be to be able to make an impact in that area so that no other young lady, no other young man would lose their mother at such an early age.
Wow. Wow. Something you said, I was given the opportunity to find success. And I'm like, okay, I love the way you said that, because if I put it in a term that others probably would understand, it was more like, okay, I no longer had that opportunity where I was, so now I'm going to get the opportunity to find success somewhere else. You know what? That is a total mind shift change. Okay.
Yes.
I like that. Okay. But I love how you talked about, the things that were going on, the challenges that was in your family, the challenges, like you said, even you had challenges as well growing up, in Atlanta. And, with people, you tell them your stories and it's like, really? Like they can't believe that that's so I think that's just awesome. And to be able to say, because a lot of times when we do things, we keep it within house, some of us, but just for you to say, you know what, here's my opportunity, I'm going to take this further, because there are other people that would, they want to do better, but they probably don't know how. So that's where you come in at. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Let me ask this question. So many people feel stuck between their 9 to 5 and their dream. And you just talked about how you had the opportunity to find success for yourself, walking in your purpose. So when you look at others that feel stuck between their 9 to 5, what help what would you say to them to get them to see or shift their mind to saying, okay, you know what? I know what it is that I want to do, and I'm going to find that success by walking in my purpose.
Yes. So I would first and foremost say, whatever higher power or being that you believe in, just give it all over, succumb to whatever it is that you want to do, and believe that it can actually happen. Because I personally believe that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it was just one of those things. I too felt stuck because growing up, that was the mantra that was taught in my family. You go get a good government job and you keep that job, right? But when I was there, I just felt like I was on punishment sitting in a little closet because we had offices with no windows and things like that. So it was like stealing my joy. It wasn't giving me the motivation that I needed. And then being in the 9 to 5, in corporate space, I really enjoyed the work that I did. I loved being able to see projects through and know that I was making an impact, especially when it was in the healthcare space. However, there was some conflicts there. And those conflicts often were the things that kind of made me watch the clock when it was time to get up and go into the office. It was like, I'm dragging myself out of bed, or looking at the clock throughout the day, like, oh my gosh, when is this day going to be over? And the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? If you're thinking about it like that, then you're really wishing your life away. So that means you're not fulfilling your purpose. So the first key is awareness. And once you become aware, there's so many different things that you can do in order to prepare yourself for a transition. And of course, if you have small children, you have a family, you have, a home that you're trying to pay for and other assets, it makes it kind of challenging, right? And I hadn't really heard about the concept early on about the golden handcuffs, but that is a real deal. And it's like it will make you feel like there's this stability. But right now, with the climate that we're in and the society and how things are showing up right now is a critical juncture, right? And it's a time for you to
Yes.
know that there is no safe place, government especially now. And so having a vision after you become aware and just really figuring out what it is you're really truly passionate about. Because guess what? My uncle used to always tell me, do something that you're passionate about and don't chase the money because it will find you. And I didn't quite understand the concept until more recently, but it's just a certain type of energy that is, it's kind of like organic and it comes from within. And I can't really explain it, but when I tell you, it just lights you up, and it helps with harmony, because not only are you feeling like you're doing something meaningful, you're motivated to do it at the same time, and you will find a way. So just before I made my exit, I knew in my mind, because we had a training class and they had us all line up based on our years of experience and how long we have been with the company. Well, it turns out I was on the spectrum that had so much more experience, but I didn't have the title to match it, being that I was at the company and other people were kind of like in higher positions. And I was just thinking, what's wrong with this picture? And so I started deciding that, okay, it's time for me to have some personal development. And so from that point on, I started really being intentional about following leaders such as Phyllis Newhouse, finding a mentor who was in the space that I wanted to be in, and learning how to do the things that they were doing. And then just really figuring out, okay, what is my path to be able to be where I want to be in the next couple of years? And of course, it seems so, I don't know, it just kind of fell in my lap, if you will. I was never going to walk away from that job until I felt more secure somewhere else, right? But
Right.
then there was going to be torn between the two. So there was something, and that was my prayer. God, if this is not for me anymore, and this other thing that is on my heart is what you want me to do, then show me the way. Make it to where I can exit, because I had a 6-figure job, and there's nothing like being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, not worrying
Yeah.
about your paycheck coming in, right?
Right.
But it's a different mindset being an owner, entrepreneur, and producer versus an employee, because you're the person who actually has to have the vision, and you're the one that has to see it through. You're the one that has to recruit the people to help you bring your vision to life. And so I had to go through, I guess, what I would consider like a spiritual cleansing or a corporate cleansing. I don't know. But I had to come away from under that thinking of the corporate space in order to thrive as an entrepreneur. And so I would just advise, if that's really something that you want to do, embrace it, start building that vision in your mind and building a plan to execute, and know that it's going to take time for sure. And there is no linear path to success. You may be down one day, up the other, and there are definitely some what they call the valley of, oh gosh, I can't remember what it's called. It's not the valley of death, but it's these low, it's where you're just like, oh my gosh, I just can't do this, right? But when you circle back and think about why are you doing this, then you figure out a way.
I like that. I remember when I was in Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
I owned a limousine service, and I actually got laid off from corporate America, and I had young kids. So I had to figure it out. So I was like, okay, I'll go drive a limousine. And I bought my mom, my husband had passed away, my mom passed away. So the inheritance that I got, I just taken that. I paid cash for a limousine because I didn't need a note. And you're right, it was that freedom. Yes, I know that I had to have the vision. When you own your own business, you can make as much money as you want. You get to promote yourself as many times as you want. And true, you have to do everything, but it's okay. It's that freedom, that feel of I'm in control of my time and my life. And that means a lot. So I understand. And then when you made the statement about, um, being told like you get grown, you get you a good government job, and well, where we at in this space, and not just government jobs, but also private sectors, because anything that affects government jobs eventually will start to spill over into our private sector. But you're right, this is a great opportunity to be able to figure out what it is that you truly, your purpose, in order for you to be able to walk in. And a lot of times we know our purpose, but like you said, that whole thing of letting go of where you are is kind of like, a baby learning how to walk or learning how to ride a bike for the first time. It's like you got those training wheels on. You're like, I don't want to let these training wheels, I'm going to fall. It's okay. You can get back up, and just keep on riding. So, but tell me this, have there ever been a moment on your journey that you kind of question your purpose? Like, and if you did, like, what kept you anchored during that season?
Yeah, so those valleys that I mentioned before were definitely periods where it was challenging, right? Because trying to navigate entrepreneurship and navigate an industry that, you kind of know, but you don't know, and trying to figure it all out and wearing so many hats in your business, it can be taxing. And so I definitely question, well, am I doing the right thing? Is this really what I was supposed to be doing? And I had to borrow belief in myself from my husband because he feels like I can walk on water. And I always have him to go to whenever I'm struggling with, decision making, or if things aren't progressing, accurately. And I vividly recall there have been times when I had to like swallow my pride and ask for help, right? Help that I normally would not have to ask for because I had it all together. And a lot of times there will be people who are very open and willing and just very supportive. Then there are other times where people are, and I don't think they do it intentionally, may basically slam the door in your face and say, screw you, go somewhere, I ain't got time. And those times can be very, dark and hurtful. And it's just one of those things where if you feel like you're doing and you're seeing a vision through and you feel that motivation, like I said, that comes from the heart, you'll be able to push through all of that. You won't hold on to it. You'll forgive those individuals. And then when they circle back and you end up working with them again, y'all can joke and laugh about it and say, well, you did really offend me with that situation when I really needed you and you didn't come through for me. But there are definitely going to be some times when you're going to question it. But like I said, it's really got to be from the heart. When you connect with that purpose that is deep down in your soul and your heart, it's going to be very easy for you to follow your North Star, no matter if you have to walk through the mud, if you start drowning in quicksand, it's not going to even matter. You will figure out a way. And one of the other things that I would definitely encourage anyone to do in order to avoid the burnout is just coming up with a routine and making sure that there's this one thing that is your go-to when you're struggling. And mine's is definitely going to the gym. So I like to swim a lot, and swimming is offers zen and quiet and just a peace to me. And so if ever I'm like really, really down, I could definitely go hop in the pool, and it'll definitely help me to be able to see more clearly all my thoughts, gather them, because you're sitting there in the water with yourself, right?
Yes, I like that because when I have those moments, I always tell my husband, "Hey, can we go find some water now?" I'm not a swimmer, but
Mm-hmm.
I like to go to the water and I'll sit there. And any issue I have, I just throw it in the water and say, "Okay, that's it." I walk away. I feel good, and I know that's like, odd, but yeah. But one of the other things I wanted to say is that when you make the decision to say, "This is it," it's amazing how doors will start to open every step you make. And when you need something, it will show up. But like you said, there will be those that won't show up for you the way you want them to, but they're not supposed to, because anything that's supposed to happen happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's like water, fluid. So when you start to step into your purpose and you following your heart, what's deep within you, it's like God, he just started saying, "Okay, I know you're serious now, so I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you that." People will start to show up,
Mm-hmm.
for you. And I look at, me, like when I was first thinking about doing the podcast, and I had some that said, "You think that's easy. You got to do this, you got to do that. Well, when you start telling me everything I got to do, it is difficult. I'm going to do it, just like I'm going to prove them wrong, because I'm
Right.
going to do this thing. But, when you first start something, you have all that momentum, right? Like, I
Mhm.
got this. But then as time go on, like you say, you got to have something that when you start feeling like over, like, "Oh my goodness, can I keep moving?" You got to have something that makes you say, or look at yourself and say, "I got this. I can do it." I know for me, there have been times that I was just so tired. I didn't want to, record the podcast. But
Mhm.
then something said, somebody is dependent on you. Somebody is dependent on you to get a message. They need this. So you just got to do it. You got to do it. So I didn't give myself a way out. So yeah, so how about your purpose can evolve, right? So how has yours changed over the years, and what did you have to let go of to grow into it?
So I believe that my purpose has really been to be a nurturer to those that are closest to me. And in that, because I started my company in 2005, and it was a beauty line. I was really excited. Things were going good. But when it comes to having to try to handle and balance it all, I had two young children. I had a full-time job. I had a full-time husband. And I realized that we don't have an endless amount of time, right? And so I wanted to make sure that I was present in those early years to be able to like really connect with my husband, to really connect with each one of my daughters individually, to connect with my mom, my grandmother, the aunts, the cousins. And in order to do that, I had to take a step back from the business because it was consuming so much of me. I loved it, and it was still within the same vein of Optimistic People Unified for Awareness, but it was more about finding self love through, these accessories that is called cosmetics, but really ditching the whole idea of, I have to like be basically or cover up something, right? And so with that, it evolved over time. And I decided, I'm not giving up on my hopes and my dreams. I'm just putting it on the shelf for a little while so that I can get a handle on these things that are most important to me right now. And then from there, as I, graduated to each different stage and level in life, when the girls were able to be more independent and they didn't need me so much, and, realizing that, okay, I personally want to have health. And I saw a lot of people losing their lives because of their behaviors in terms of, physical, mental, social, emotional. things that they weren't tending to. And I decided, hey, I think I need to lean into this. And then when it really got critical was then once I lost my mom. I mean, we took a special kind of like mommy daughter day, and my two daughters, we hired a makeup artist, went to Airbnb, and took some photos to just commemorate the time that we had with her, because we didn't know how much more time we had, and we had already transitioned to palliative care, and they were saying, oh well, she only has maybe 6 weeks and maybe 6 months. It was just like switching back and forth. We know that they didn't know, but at the same time, just being able to be present in those moments and giving of myself was very eye-opening, and it allowed me to evolve. And through all of that, I still feel like my true purpose is about love and brokering happiness. So you may see, like, if you do some Google searches, that was part of my brand before, is the happiness broker, because people always say, well, why are you so happy? How are you so happy? And they're like, you don't ever have a bad day. You don't ever have problems. And it's like, well, you have to choose your happy, right? And
Right.
when you've seen so much negativity, growing up, because I had so many adverse childhood experiences, we could probably do 10 podcasts on it, each individual topic. It's like, I understand what it means to forgive. I understand what it means to have self-love. I understand what it means to give yourself grace and to show up and be present in the moment, because you never know when those moments are going to be taken away. And so I definitely believe in the evolution of your purpose. And at the core, though, I still believe that it's that one thing. And that one thing for me is definitely love.
I like that. I like that. Well, the final question I have for you for today. So
Mhm.
hopefully you'll come back again. That's why I
Of
said for
course I
today.
will.
So for someone listening right now who feels unqualified or late in the game, what would you say to them about starting anyway?
Ooh, that's a really, really, really good one. Because when I tell you, it was just before I received notice that my position was going to be eliminated in my last corporate job. I was at the NMSDC conference, and I was listening to panels, and it was the last day of the conference. And one lady on the panel, she said something that was kind of interesting. And so I went up to her to tell her, thank you for being here. I really appreciate hearing from you, yada, yada, yada. And she was so dismissive of me. It was just ridiculous. I mean, I was in disbelief. And then, so the next panel came up, and I heard the ladies, and oh my gosh, the one lady that I mentioned earlier, Phyllis Newhouse, she spoke so eloquently, and it touched my heart so deeply. I mean, I was snotty nose crying, and I still went up to her to talk to her, because I could have just been like, oh, well, I'm not going to go talk to her because that other lady, brushed me off and made me feel like I was less than, right? But I said, you know what? No, I'm going to talk to her. And I did. And you know what she asked me? Because she was like, oh, well, how's it going? What's your business? I told her, and I said, I haven't got my first contract yet. She said, why not? As a matter of factly, like what's the problem? Why don't you have it yet? And so that would be my question. Why not? Why not you? Who's more qualified? And if you feel like you have some insecurities, go figure that out. Go get the skills that you feel like you need, but do not allow that to make you procrastinate. Because a lot of times we say, oh, I'm not qualified. I need to go get this certification. I need to go get this degree. Next thing you know, you're sitting on 10 degrees and all these certifications, and you still haven't done anything. So you have to make up in your mind whether you have that belief in your abilities and your capabilities, and you can learn along the way. When I tell you, I started doing websites back in 2000, and it was so challenging, and I gave up on it. But now, today, I can actually do websites. I even mentioned this to you the other day.
Yeah.
It's like, it was hard. It was a struggle. I didn't feel qualified. I didn't know how to do all the things. But you know what? I did not give up. And time evolves, right? So the same resources that were available today were not available 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And so you have to just be willing to be a sponge, be willing to be evolve with the times, and just continue to grow, and never, ever, ever give up on yourself and your dream and vision. Because if it's for you and you really want it, and you feel that within your heart, and you feel like that's your divine calling, guess what, girl? It will be yours.
Love it. I love it. Never, ever, ever give up. Stay consistent. keep it moving. This has been our show for this evening, Walking in Your Purpose. But before we go, let me remind you, one, I want to say thank you again and again to Ms. the phenomenal Siobhan Reed for joining us and sharing her knowledge and giving some wisdom and advice on never giving up, because that is so important. That is so important. And I truly do hope that you'll come and join me again. This has been an awesome time, just being able to, share. And that's another way of showing love. So I like that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much
Yes.
for having me, Tamiko. You know I love you.
Hey, back at you. You know I love you too. So, but before we leave, I just want to take the opportunity to remind each and every one of you about the Confidence Igniter Conference coming up on May 10th from 2 to 6 p.m. It's going to be held in Marietta, Georgia. If you want to get more information, you can go to my website, www.tamikogreen.com. There is a free event. We am accepting donations because those donations will go to be able to assist those that are in need of food. So once again, that my website is www.tamikogreen.com. And also, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Well, until we meet again, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye for now.